My name is Ethan Miller. I am 30 years old, and 2 years ago I fell down a narrow staircase and woke up to a body that no longer obeyed me. Last summer, my own brother grabbed my shirt in front of our entire family and tipped my wheelchair, sending me crashing onto sun-baked concrete while they laughed and filmed. Blood filled my mouth, my leg twisted. Someone said, "Get up, stop the act." But what they didn't know was that someone else had been recording too. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you. Family wounds cut the deepest, and sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who twist the knife. And your support helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. I grew up in a house that always smelled like reheated coffee and lemon-scented floor cleaner, the kind my mom bought in bulk from the discount aisle. Our split-level place had creaky stairs, a driveway littered with basketballs, and a kitchen where the ceiling light buzzed faintly like a trapped fly. That buzzing became the soundtrack of my childhood, especially during dinners where everything looked normal from the outside and nothing truly was. I was 6 the first time I realized Ryan lived in a different universe than I did. Mom slid a steaming bowl of mashed potatoes onto the table, and without missing a beat, she scooped a mountain-sized portion onto Ryan's plate. Then another, then the drumstick. I waited for her to turn toward me with that same warm smile. She didn't. Dad passed the corn to Ryan, first ruffled his hair, and launched into a long story about Ryan's school spelling bee, where he placed 4th. My own certificate for most creative drawing sat folded inside my backpack. I swallowed the small disappointment and shoveled a spoonful of plain potatoes into my mouth. I didn't know it back then, but this tiny imbalance would grow into something sharp enough to hurt years later. By middle school, the hierarchy had become an unspoken family tradition. Ryan was the loud one, the athlete. The boy teachers remembered. I was the kid fixing printers in the computer lab or staying late to help the librarian return books. One afternoon, I won a district science award. My teacher insisted on taking a photo of me holding the certificate. The school hung it right outside the office, laminated and everything. Mom came to pick me up. She paused in front of the board, squinting. For a full second, I thought she'd notice. Instead, she smiled softly to herself. For a moment, I thought that was Ryan. He gets that serious look when he's focused. Then she walked to the gym to watch his basketball scrimmage. I stayed behind pretending to tie my shoe because no one was there to celebrate with me. I pretended it didn't sting, but it carved deeper than I thought. Dad died when I was 17, a heart attack in a Walmart parking lot. Sudden, brutal. Ryan delivered the eulogy, and everyone said it was beautiful. He talked about Dad in grand cinematic lines, how he taught us grit, how he pushed us to never complain, how a Miller man doesn't sit down when it hurts. Mom dabbed her eyes. People nodded. I sat there in my too tight dress shirt, choking on the part Ryan left out. Dad never taught me any of that because he didn't think I needed to be taught. He only ever said it to Ryan. I didn't know then how that line, "Don't sit down when it hurts," would return like a curse the day I couldn't stand at all. After Dad's death, I joined the Army National Guard. Part escape, part duty. Part attempt to reclaim some version of manhood that didn't belong exclusively to my brother. The Guard wasn't glamorous. No war stories, no medals. It was heat drills, sandbag scratches on my arms from hauling gear. But for the first time in my life, no one compared me to Ryan. No one asked if I'd ever be as good as my brother. I found a strange peace in the routine. I picked up IT jobs afterward, fixing routers, cleaning viruses from old laptops. Machines made more sense than people. Cables didn't judge you. Wires didn't ask why you weren't more like your sibling. I moved into an apartment when I was 28. Cheap place, ugly place. The hallway light flickered like a dying star. The staircase was steep and narrow enough that you had to turn sideways when carrying groceries. The first time I climbed those steps, a shiver ran up my spine. Something whispered, "Careful," but I ignored it. I'd spent years proving I could handle life on my own. I didn't know it then. But those stairs were waiting for me, waiting to change everything. Months later, the accident came. I don't remember the fall in full detail, only a blur of motion. My foot slipping on something wet. The sound of the trash bag tearing and my body tumbling down like a dropped mannequin. The paramedics said I was lucky I didn't die. The doctors said I might walk again someday. Maybe. The word maybe became the shadow that followed me through hospital hallways during rehab. When pain was a living thing gnawing at my spine, I called Ryan 3 times. Left voicemails asking him to come to an appointment so he could hear the prognosis directly from my doctor. He never called back, never texted. Weeks later, when I finally asked him why, he shrugged. Busy. Didn't think it was that serious. Those 6 words became a crack that widened into a canyon. I didn't know this distance would become the perfect soil for suspicion, resentment, and betrayal to grow. Rehab became the longest season of my life. The days smelled like antiseptic wipes, burnt coffee from the nurse's station, and the rubbery scent of exercise bands. I spent hours in rooms filled with metal bars and mirrors, my reflection bent in ways my body could no longer follow. My physical therapist, Melissa, tried to keep things light, cracking jokes, telling me about her dog pushing me through each session inch by inch. But there were nights when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling tiles, each rectangle looking like a silent accusation. I should have been able to walk. I should have been stronger. I should have never slipped. Mom visited often at first. She brought soup in plastic containers, folded my laundry, and kept asking if I needed more blankets. But she never stayed long. She always left muttering something about Ryan, about how overwhelmed he was at work, how stressed he'd been since Dad died. The unspoken message lingered in the air. My injury was a burden, and Ryan's feelings still mattered more. I didn't know it yet, but that imbalance would quietly push my family toward the breaking point. I came home from rehab 9 weeks later, moving slower than an old hinge. The modified ramp leading to Mom's house was still half built. Ryan had promised to finish it. He didn't. The wood sat in a neat stack on the porch, slowly warping in the rain. Mom apologized for him again. I told her it was fine. It wasn't. The truth is, the world had shifted for me, but my family hadn't moved with it. The whispers started subtly. At Thanksgiving, I struggled to transfer from my chair to the couch, and I caught my cousin Dylan watching me with narrowed eyes. "Saw you standing at Jewel last week," he said casually over turkey. "Looked fine to me." I blinked. I was doing physical therapy exercises, I explained. I held on to the cart. Dylan shrugged, chewing loud enough to drown my words, just saying what I saw. By the end of dinner, 3 more people repeated his story, each version more exaggerated than the last. In one version, I walked like normal. In another, I ran. The worst part was the way no one defended me. Not even Mom. Christmas was worse. Ryan handed me a gift bag with protein bars inside. "For when you're done pretending," he said under his breath. Mom heard him. She didn't correct him. Just sighed and adjusted the Christmas lights on the tree like rearranging bulbs. Was more urgent than my dignity. I remember the cold sting in my chest, sharper than the winter wind slipping under the doorframe. I swallowed it, but the bitterness lodged deep. Spring brought doctor bills and endless appointments and more silence from Ryan. I emailed my family copies of the x-rays, the nerve conduction results, the surgical notes. No one responded. Not a single acknowledgement. It was like shouting into a dark well. The silence felt intentional, almost strategic. I didn't know then how much that silence would be used against me. Summer arrived sticky and heavy. Mom called one morning, her voice thin and frayed. "Ethan, I'm thinking of refinancing," she said softly, "just until you're back on your feet." My chest tightened. "Mom, no, please don't. I can manage." But she'd already talked to a lender. She'd already signed paperwork. When I protested, she said, "Ryan thinks it's the right move." And that sentence, those 5 casual words, became another cut I had to swallow. Ryan thought. Therefore, Mom obeyed. For months, I lived in limbo. I went to therapy, fought through nerve pain that felt like electricity crawling up my leg, learned to stand for brief moments with a walker. Each small victory was fragile private. I kept hoping my family would come around, that someone would believe me without proof. Instead, the skepticism grew. 4th of July was the turning point. Ryan posted a picture of himself holding a beer captioned, "Some people fake injuries for attention. Real men show up. No names." He didn't have to. Everyone in our circle knew who he meant. My phone buzzed all night with screenshots from friends who weren't sure how to respond, but the worst part wasn't the post. It was Mom's reaction when I confronted her. She wrung her hands, avoided my eyes, and said, "He's just frustrated. You know how he is. Don't make it a big deal." She didn't tell him to delete it. She didn't defend me. She didn't even hesitate. That was the first time I felt something in me crack, not physically, but emotionally, like a support beam failing in the attic of a house. A quiet, dangerous collapse. The family reunion invitation arrived 2 weeks later. I tried to decline 3 times. Aunt Karen insisted. "It's just a gathering," she said sweetly. "Everyone's excited to see you." But under her voice, I heard something else, a test, an evaluation, a collective judgment itching to be made. I didn't know then that walking or not walking was no longer the point. My family had already decided who I was: a liar, a leech, a disappointment. I didn't know it back then, but the reunion would become the day everything snapped, not just for me, but for all of us. The day they pushed too far. The day someone unexpected would step forward. The day the truth would finally stop hiding. The weeks leading up to the reunion felt like walking through fog, thick, disorienting, and full of shapes I couldn't quite make out. Every interaction with my family slipped into some subtle accusation, some sideways glance, some comment that stung just enough to make me wonder if they even remembered who I used to be. The first escalation came 3 days after my brace fitting. The orthotist had tightened the metal frame around my knee until I could barely breathe through the pressure. But I forced myself to smile. Progress was progress. When I got home, Ryan was standing in Mom's driveway with a beer in hand. He didn't say hello, just looked at the brace and smirked. "Wow," he said. "They really give those things to anyone now, huh?" I blinked. "It's medical equipment, Ryan." He took a slow sip, eyes never leaving me. "Sure, if you say so." Mom stepped outside with a trash bag, pretending she hadn't heard, pretending everything was fine. That cut deeper than Ryan's words. The silence between us wasn't passive, it was agreement. And I felt it like a bruise spreading under the skin. I left early that day. I told myself it didn't matter, but it did. It always did. 2 weeks later, during a barbecue at Aunt Karen's, I overheard Dylan telling a story that made my blood run cold. He stood at the grill flipping burgers dramatically while a circle of relatives nodded along. "I swear," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I saw Ethan dead-ass jogging across the Jewel parking lot. Not walking, jogging." My throat tightened. "Jogging. Really?" Dylan shrugged. "Maybe not jogging, but you moved fast. Faster than a disabled guy should." Karen laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. "Maybe he's just healing faster than he's letting on. I should have walked away." But something in me snapped. "I've never jogged since the fall," I said firmly. "Physical therapy has me standing with a walker for maybe 2 minutes at a time. That's it." Dylan scoffed. "Man, whatever. I know what I saw." But he didn't. And the worst part was that no one asked for the truth. No one said maybe Dylan misunderstood. Maybe Ethan's telling the truth. The silence gave his lie roots. I could feel them digging into the ground, twisting deep. That night, Mom confronted me in the kitchen. The overhead light flickered, buzzing. "Ethan," she whispered, "are you sure you're not pushing yourself behind our backs?" My chest burned. "Why would I lie about that?" She folded a dish towel over and over, hands trembling. "People are confused. They don't understand what they're seeing." "What they're seeing," I snapped, "is physical therapy. That's it." She flinched at my tone, but she didn't deny anything, didn't defend me. She just whispered, "Maybe try not to stand up when people don't expect it. It sends the wrong message." I stared at her. "So I'm supposed to schedule my pain for everyone's convenience?" She lowered her eyes. "Don't be dramatic." That was the night I realized she wasn't confused. She was choosing Ryan's comfort over my reality. Again. And again. The next escalation happened at a doctor's appointment. Mom had driven me because my leg was having one of its bad days. Every nerve in it felt like it had been dipped in fire. Afterward, as we rolled to the parking lot, I tried to bring up the fact that she hadn't corrected Dylan or Karen or anyone. "Mom," I said quietly, "why won't you just tell them what the doctor says?" She sighed. "People see what they want to see. And what do you see?" She didn't answer. And that silence, that awful hesitation, was louder than anything she could have said. Then Ryan discovered the second mortgage. He brought it up at dinner with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. So he said, leaning back with a smug smile, Mom's paying for your van, your ramp, your appointments, with money she doesn't even have. My heart stopped. What mortgage? Mom stiffened. Ryan grinned. Oh, you didn't know. She's drowning in debt because of you. Ryan stopped. Mom whispered. No, he said sharply. He needs to hear this. You're bleeding her dry, Ethan. Something inside me twisted. I never asked for that mortgage. You didn't stop it, he shot back. You just took. That's what you do. Mom reached for his arm. He shook her off. And then he said the sentence that would echo in my head for weeks. You know what I think? I think this whole disability thing is getting real convenient. He said disability with air quotes. He said convenient like it was a scam. He said, I think like he was presenting evidence in a courtroom. Mom didn't defend me. She didn't even gasp. She just wiped her eyes. That was when I felt it something subtle but fatal, a shift, a turn. The moment when doubt became belief, not mine, theirs. A week later, I sent an email to everyone in the family. It included x-rays, physician notes, the surgery report, the nerve conduction study. I wrote a full paragraph explaining neuropathic pain, proprioception loss, spinal fusions. No one replied, not a single one. And that silence confirmed what I feared. They didn't want proof. They wanted a villain, someone to blame for the discomfort of facing my injury, someone to point at and whisper liar when guilt got too heavy. The reunion invitation arrived during that suffocating silence, a neat little card with pastel flowers and the words, family is everything. I stared at it for a long time. Family is everything. I wondered if they believed that, or if they only believed it when it applied to everyone but me. I didn't know it back then, but the reunion wouldn't just expose them. It would expose every fracture, every wound, every buried resentment that had been rotting beneath our feet for years. It would be the day the ground finally split open. The week before the reunion, everything tightened around me like a noose. Even the air in Mom's house felt heavier, thick with unspoken judgment. Every time I wheeled into a room, the conversation shifted. Eyes flicked toward my legs, then away. That kind of silence isn't quiet, it hisses. The next escalation came on a humid Tuesday evening. I was in the living room adjusting the straps of my orthotic brace when Ryan walked in, holding my disability card between two fingers like it was a dirty tissue. So he asked, how much does this little thing get you? A month? I froze. Put that back. He tilted his head, just curious. It's not like you earned it. Ryan, I started. But he cut me off with a laugh. Relax. I'm just asking a question. Mom stood in the hallway, wringing her hands the way she always did when she wanted to say something but didn't dare. Ryan, stop, she whispered. He shrugged, eyes still locked on mine. I'm just trying to understand how Ethan suddenly can't work, but can still afford DoorDash every night. My jaw clenched. Because I'm in pain most nights. Right? He said, drawing out the word like gum, pain. Mom closed her eyes. Ryan, that's enough. He smirked at her. It will never be enough until he tells the truth. But he didn't want the truth. He wanted confirmation of the lie he already believed. The next day, Mom asked me to ride with her to the pharmacy. It was hot. Real hot. The kind of Midwest heat that makes the sky look metallic. She parked, turned off the engine, and inhaled like she was preparing for a confession. Ethan, she began softly, your brother is just having a hard time. I pressed my head against the headrest. Mom, he's accusing me of faking a spinal injury. He doesn't understand everything you're going through. He doesn't want to understand. She stared out the windshield. Ryan lost his father too, you know. I let out a bitter laugh. So my injury is actually about his grief now. Her shoulders tightened. That's not what I'm saying, but it was. And it hurt in ways I didn't know how to articulate without sounding cruel. Pain makes your voice sharp. Trauma makes your logic messy. That night, another blow came. Dylan posted a meme on Facebook, one of those cheap, blurry ones. It showed a man standing up from a wheelchair with the caption, "When you realize rent is due." The comments underneath a row of laughing emojis. And then from Ryan's account, familiar. I stared at the screen, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was cracking ribs. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Half the family had liked it. A few of them had slipped into my DMs earlier that week to ask how I was doing, and now here they were, laughing at the idea of me faking my disability. I shut my laptop, sat back, breathed in, breathed out, tried not to scream. The worst part wasn't the meme. It was the normalization of cruelty. The ease with which people you love can transform you into a punchline. The next escalation came 3 days before the reunion. Mom walked into my room with a stack of envelopes and medical bills. "Ethan, we need to talk about these." My stomach dropped. "What about them? I can't keep paying everything," she said. "It's too much." "I never asked you to." "I know," she whispered. "But you also didn't stop me." The accusation stunned me. What was I supposed to do? Tell you to let me rot? She didn't answer. She just rubbed her temples. "Ryan says I snapped. I don't care what Ryan says." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Please don't talk to me like that. Then stop filtering my entire existence through him." Her lips trembled, and for a moment something raw flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. I didn't know then that she'd been feeding Ryan every detail of my finances, hoping he would help. Instead, he used it as ammunition. 2 days before the reunion, I was transferring from the wheelchair to the shower bench when my right leg buckled. A burst of white-hot pain shot up my spine, the kind that steals breath. I screamed before I could stop myself. I crawled out, dragging my useless leg like dead weight. By the time I reached my phone, my hands were shaking so violently I could barely dial. Mom arrived 20 minutes later. She found me on the bathroom floor, soaked and trembling. But instead of horror, she hesitated. "Ethan, are you sure this isn't anxiety?" I stared at her, speechless. "My leg gave out, Mom." She bit her lip. "You know how stress affects your body?" I felt something inside me wither. "Are you telling me I imagined buckling to the floor?" "No," she whispered. "I'm just saying maybe your nerves are exaggerating the pain." And that was when I knew. It wasn't Ryan leading the doubt anymore. It had infected the entire house. The day before the reunion, Aunt Karen called. Her voice was overly cheerful. "Ethan's so excited to see you tomorrow. I'm not sure I should come," I said. She laughed. "Don't be silly. Everyone wants to catch up." But I heard the undertone, a hungry curiosity, a test. Then she added, "Just be prepared. People have questions." Questions, not concern, not empathy. Questions. I agreed to go. I shouldn't have. But something stubborn in me wanted at least one person to witness my truth. I didn't know then that truth wasn't something they wanted. They wanted a spectacle, a chance to confirm their suspicions, a chance to watch me fail. The final escalation came the morning of the reunion. I was lacing my shoes slowly, awkwardly, when Ryan texted me out of nowhere. "Make sure your legs work today." I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. A second message came, no excuses. There was no mistaking the threat behind it, no misinterpreting the cruelty. I realized then that the reunion wasn't a gathering. It was a setup, a stage, a verdict waiting to happen. And I was walking into it like a lamb stepping toward a blade. The heat hit me first. A wall of thick July air pressed against my skin the moment Mom pushed my wheelchair onto Aunt Karen's patio. The concrete shimmered beneath the sun. A Bluetooth speaker played some upbeat country song that didn't match the tension coiled in my stomach. Kids darted around, tossing a foam ball. Grills hissed with smoke, and the smell of overcooked burgers and cheap lighter fluid filled the yard. 40-something relatives turned when they saw me, and the shift was instant. The ripple of whispered curiosity. The phones subtly lifted the two bright smiles. It felt like stepping onto a stage I never auditioned for. Ryan was already there, arms crossed, jaw tight, a beer in each hand. His face was flushed, either from heat or pride, probably both. When his eyes locked on me, something triumphant flickered, a silent declaration. "Showtime." He walked over slowly, dragging the weight of the crowd with him. "Well, well," he said loudly. "Look who finally decided to stop hiding." I kept my voice steady. "I'm not hiding, Ryan." He leaned down so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "We'll see." Before I could respond, he grabbed the handles of my wheelchair and spun me toward the center of the yard as if I weighed nothing. The sudden motion sent pain shooting up my spine. Conversations died. Phones rose. A circle formed around us. Mom whispered, "Ryan, stop, please." But her voice didn't carry. He stepped in front of me, raising his beer like a prop. "Everyone keeps asking questions," he announced. So let's get answers. My pulse hammered. What are you doing standing up for the truth, he said, since you won't? Laughter scattered through the crowd like sparks. Someone muttered finally. Another whispered, told you he was faking. I felt the world tilt not from dizziness, but from the weight of being outnumbered. Ryan pointed at my legs. If you can stand at the grocery store, if you can jog like Dylan saw, then show us, right here, right now. Dylan puffed his chest. Saw it with my own eyes, man. You saw me holding onto a shopping cart, I snapped. I was doing therapy exercises? Sure, he said. Whatever helps you sleep. Aunt Karen, my sweet church-going aunt, clapped her hands sharply. Let him prove it. Let's end all this drama. End it. As if I created it. The crowd started murmuring, stand up, stand up. First soft, then louder. A chant. My throat tightened. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair. No, I can't. Ryan smirked. You mean you won't? I can't, I repeated. Prove it. I don't owe you proof. He crouched so our faces were inches apart. You've owed us for years. Then he grabbed my shirt. Hard gasps erupted around us. The kids froze mid-run. The grill hissed behind the choking silence. Ryan, stop. Mom cried, finally stepping forward, but he shoved her back with his shoulder. Everything inside me screamed danger. Before I could brace myself, he yanked. The world flipped. The sky swung overhead. Then the patio rushed up to meet me. My head hit first, then my shoulder, then the sharp edge of the concrete scraped through the skin of my palms as I slid. Pain exploded down my leg, a white-hot current that made my vision blur. My wheelchair clattered to the side and landed on its back, one wheel spinning lazily. Someone laughed. Someone recorded. Someone said, Jesus, he went down easy. I tasted blood. The copper bitterness filled my mouth. Sweat burned in my eyes. I tried to push myself up, but my right leg twisted at a sickening angle, refusing to obey. Ryan stood over me, breathing hard. Get up! My palms shook, gravel embedded into the wounds. I forced my arms to move, but they trembled violently. Get up, he repeated louder this time. Show everyone you're not lying. I couldn't move. My leg was on fire. My spine screamed. The heat from the concrete seared my skin. Come on, he shouted, turning to the crowd like a ringmaster. This is what? 2 years now. 2 years of disability checks. Free rent, free food, free everything. I didn't ask for any of that. I managed voice small. He kicked my wheelchair. The frame rang like a bell. You didn't stop it either. People around us nodded, whispered, filmed. A chant rose again. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Aunt Karen's voice led them. Something inside me collapsed. The humiliation, the disbelief on their faces, the venom dripping from their words, every wound from childhood to now compressed into that single moment. Then a voice cut through the chaos. That's my patient you're assaulting. Silence. The chant died instantly like someone had unplugged it. Ryan's grip on my shirt loosened. Slowly he turned. A man stepped forward from behind the crowd. Calm, composed, holding a can of Diet Coke, mid-50s, navy polo, wire-rimmed glasses. A familiar presence I hadn't expected to see. Dr. Daniel Park. Ryan blinked. Who the hell are you, doctor? Park took a sip. Jordan's surgeon, he said evenly, among other things. The yard froze. Phone stopped recording or pointed at him instead. Dr. Park pulled his phone from his pocket. I think everyone should see this. He tapped the screen. The audio filled the summer air, Ryan shouting, the chant, my body hitting the concrete, the laughter, the accusations, the cruelty. 30 seconds of undisputable truth. He paused the video. I recorded everything from the moment I arrived. Ryan's face drained of color. Dr. Park continued, voice calm but razor sharp. Jordan has metal rods in his spine, 4 of them. 14 screws, permanent nerve damage in his right leg, limited proprioception, neuropathic pain so severe it can feel like electric shocks. He cannot stand without assistance for more than a few seconds. And you... He looked directly at Ryan. Just committed aggravated battery against a disabled man in front of dozens of witnesses. A humming quiet blanketed the yard. You didn't know, Dr. Park asked, softly. That's interesting. Because Jordan invited you to 3 medical appointments. Ryan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Mom covered her face with both hands. The silence was thick, heavy, suffocating. That's when something inside me shifted. I felt it. A hardening. A cold bloom of clarity. I looked up at Ryan. His expression was breaking cracks forming across the confidence he'd worn like armor. And as Dr. Park stood between us, unwavering, I felt a cold smile rise inside me, not on my lips, in my eyes. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The police arrived faster than I expected. Maybe someone had already called. Maybe Dr. Park had. Or maybe the universe finally decided it was done watching me get humiliated. 2 officers spoke quietly with him while another knelt beside me, asking questions I barely heard over the pounding in my skull. My leg pulsed with every heartbeat. The world tilted left, then right, like it couldn't decide which version of reality to land on. Ryan stood frozen near the grill, the beer still in his hand, foam dripping down his knuckles. His eyes weren't angry now. They were terrified, wide, unfocused, flicking between me, the officers, and the guests who suddenly refused to look at him. The same people who had chanted for me to stand now stared at their shoes as if guilt were something physical they could trip over. I watched him swallow hard. That was new. Ryan didn't swallow fear. Dr. Park leaned toward me, voice low. "You'll need imaging. I already called the ER. I'll drive you." I nodded. His certainty steadied me the way rails steadied my trembling hands during therapy. He folded my wheelchair, checking every bent bar with clinical precision. "This will need replacing," he muttered. "Document it." That word document landed like a seed in my mind, small but potent. Document, record, prove. For so long, I'd lived defensively, trying to justify pain to people who weren't interested in understanding it. But now the power had shifted. They thought they'd caught me, cornered me, exposed me. They didn't realize they'd handed me a weapon. As Dr. Park rolled me toward his car, I glanced back. My family stood scattered across the yard. Karen clutching her apron, Dylan, pale mom, shaking quietly. And Ryan. Ryan looked like a man staring at the edge of his own collapse. I didn't feel pity. Not then. Not yet. The concrete under my scraped palms still burned. My tongue still tasted like blood. My leg throbbed with every breath. And somewhere beneath the pain, something colder pulsed awake. They thought they had destroyed me today. They thought they had buried me in shame, doubt, and humiliation. But what they really did was give me leverage. And the truth, the undeniable, documented truth, was about to become the one weapon they never saw coming. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe and stay with me. Stories like mine aren't rare. Most people just never speak them out loud. But silence protects the wrong side. If you've lived through doubt, humiliation, or the kind of betrayal that comes from people who should have stood beside you, then you're not alone here. This story isn't over. Not for me. Not for anyone who's ever been told their pain was imaginary. Stick around because what comes next might be the part you need to hear most.